Welcome to the panel, where two bootstrapped founders talk about building a better business and a better life. I'm Justin Jackson, co-founder of Transistor.fm.
I'm Brian Castle. I am building builder methods.
Oh yeah, builder methods. It's weird. You had a few different intros.
I know. I've had too many different businesses, but right now I am going hard on builder methods, and I hope I will be doing so for the long foreseeable future.
How's that going? Is it? Are you still getting signups? Is it still? I've been watching your YouTube channel. Actually, I did a little math on your YouTube channel. Let me see if I can find this. A little bit of math on your YouTube channel. So the last 4 videos you did have averaged 27,000 views, which is pretty
the last
awesome.
4, yes. And then the one just before that is like over 50K at this point.
So but before that, your average was between 700 to 1,300 is what I calculated.
And also like that's now, like in the first like month or two of those videos when they came out months ago, they only got 200, 300, 400 views, and then they trickle in a few more over the course of the year. But yeah, like since I've been covering building with AI, it's not just the fact that I have the keyword AI in my title or anything like that. I think I just got better at creating in general, and choosing topics and framing topics and positioning, like what problem does this video solve, and also just targeting problems that I feel that I know that other people are thinking about as they're getting into these tools. So I think I'm covering topics that I think resonate.
And that was my comment. I think I sent this. Did I send this to you or to Aaron? But when they've reviewed, people are reviewing the YouTube algorithm or whatever. And I mean, this has always been the lesson, is essentially who is this video for and who is this channel for? And that's still too generalized. It's more like getting into, like, there's somebody out there that is in motion or is actively looking for stuff like this, or this is just right in their pocket, and you're making the video for that person. And it's so easy to forget about this. And
it is so easy to forget. It's like that one of those lessons that I relearn over and over and over again in my career, doing content and stuff. And it's I'm really into that question right now, because I'm also getting a ton of comments. Yeah. And I'm getting a lot of email signups and a lot of replies to my email every day, right? Because there's an autoresponder. It's like, what are you building? What's your top question? So I get a lot of emails about that. And what I'm really excited about is the target audience, the target customer for builder methods, for this business that I'm building. Like, I have a picture in my mind of who I want that to be, and that's the person who's resonating, and they're telling me that's what. So specifically, it's professional developers, right?
Yeah.
People who
they're stressed out right now.
Yeah, but like it's not the vibe coder who wants to just spin up an MVP and they have no knowledge of coding whatsoever. It's the professional developer who wants to leverage AI and become more efficient and build and build at a professional level. So I'm getting a lot of comments that speak to, like, I love how you're talking to the professional developer with a more serious tone. Yeah. There's that's resonating. But then there's also, like,
you're like the antithesis to the vibe coding boy.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, I got this. Just I'm tired of Instagram
$1 million app.
Like Instagram influencers going, watch this on stage, and they're like, hey Siri, I'm not hey Siri, hey ChatGPT, build me and then it like builds a bunch of stuff. It's like, come on.
Yeah, totally. That's been really fun. And like I don't mean to like hijack the whole start of this.
No,
episode,
dude.
But
that's why we're here.
I did a lot of reflection this week. I did like a private podcast on my feed, which I do a couple times a year. And the thing that I'm really interested in with builder methods right now is that I have a sort of a concept of what the products might end up being, but I really don't know what they are yet. Like most new businesses start with a product idea, or you start building a product and maybe it turns into a business. And this one with builder methods, this is like a creator-led business, right? Like starts with a YouTube channel, and building an audience first.
Yeah.
And so it's like product comes much later, or comes last in the evolution of this business, right?
Yeah.
So it's like curiosity first. I want to build with AI.
Yeah.
And then that spark, and then it's like educate, right? Like I learn and I teach it every single day. Like I'm learning because I want to use it, but I'm learning because I also want to teach it. And that turns into YouTube content, which attracts an audience. I learn from the audience with comments and emails. And then I start to think about, like, I know that I'm going to go down the direction of like selling courses and maybe some coaching, but like which courses to do, and how should they be angled, and what other product, like right now I'm working on a thing called Agent OS, because a really, really top question and need that I hear again and again and again is like, how do I make it more predictable, and how do I get the results from building with AI without wanting to redo all the code myself? And like, this is a system for that, you know? And so like I'm building that, and then I'll be doing a video about that. So anyway, I'm just really enjoying this whole cycle of like creating and responding to what people need, and then the challenge I think will be figuring out how to make money.
Dude, it's time for the drawing pad to come out, because this reminds me of this thing I heard Jordan Harbinger talking about. Is he kind of talked about it like a bowling alley. Like you've got all your bowling ball, your bowling pins over here. These are bad bowling pins, but I didn't want to draw anything not safe for work on the live stream here. And you're down here, right? And he says, like, if this is the audience and what they want, and down here, this kind of is what he's interested in. He's just always tried to kind of be down this line without getting the ball in the gutter, right? And I think what's hard is like, you could start with something you're interested in, but the audience isn't interested in it. But once you have something that, you know, you are interested in and resonates with the audience, like you've got a check mark for both, that's the golden opportunity. And it feels like there's going to be stages of this for you. Like you're in stage 1 where this is true, but then the next stage is going to be whether or not there's a product that aligns for both you and for the audience. That
is a huge open question for me right now, because the thing I'm most excited about right now compared to my previous stuff that I've ever done is that like I feel like I really have a good grasp on like what the distribution channel is going to be for this business. Like right out of the gate, like start, like that's step 1, and that's the YouTube channel into the email list. And that's already working. Like I'm literally gaining thousands of YouTube subscribers and email subscribers in a matter of weeks from a few videos.
Yeah.
And I'm continuing to push on that channel every
I
week.
noticed you had the call to action in your video for builder methods specifically. That's paying off?
That's in every new video now going forward. I just wrote the script for my next one. I'm going to record it tomorrow. Always in there. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm getting subscribers every day. You know?
What does your script look like? Cause I always find like that's tricky. You know, I don't script out very much.
It takes me at least half a day to get it written and finalized.
Okay.
Plus a lot more time. Like if it involves like a demo app that I need to do, then I'll work.
What does that look like? Like, do you have things in brackets that says Brian enters the shot?
Most of my personal writing I do in Obsidian.
Okay.
I do personal journaling and note taking in there, but then I also have a folder in there for like YouTube scripts.
Okay.
And so my flow is, I mean, I'll spend a whole day like writing the script, and then usually the next day I'll actually record. And when I'm recording, I'm reading a paragraph and then I say the paragraph to the camera.
Mm.
And I usually have to take like every paragraph, like probably 5
Oh,
takes before I really
interesting.
nail it. And that's where all the editing comes in after
Yeah.
that, you know. But there's a lot more of that during the intro. Like I spend a ton of time and focus on the intro section. So like the first minute of the video, like literally the first sentences that I say, and then when I introduce what is the topic of the video, and near the end of that intro is when I do a call to action into builder methods. That is by far the most important, because you need to capture their attention and you need them to buy in to, okay, I'm going to settle in and watch the rest of this video because he's promising what I want to see,
Yeah. That's, I always wonder how people do that.
Like the editing on that too, like I have to make sure that the first 30 seconds have enough action. Like they can't be bored. So that I'm doing a lot of B-roll in the first 30 seconds,
Yeah, I've heard that's key too. Like it's like, many developers are stressed out about how to incorporate AI into the end, but you have to have B-roll for all that stuff. Like yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's crazy. Like the amount of effort, like at least a whole day of just writing the script and preparing what I'm going to put in the whole video. And then like a half a day of recording it. I end up with like over an hour of footage.
Mm-hmm.
And then lately it's been like 2 days of editing.
Yeah.
And out of all that, I get a 20-minute video for you.
Yeah. It feels like this is still the piece that nobody's cracked yet. And maybe Adam Wathan, because Adam Wathan said he's working on some video editing thing, is I don't think anyone has realized, like, I think people understand people want to edit videos faster, but to me, the full AI approach has never worked. Like, just feed it your raw video, it's going to magically make all your cuts and that. I've never seen that work. Yeah, it just seems
so
like
much harder than it seems to get AI to do that.
But I think for people who want to ship videos fast, there's still not a great product. And the weird thing is that sometimes it's like, maybe you face this too. It's like, do I just use ScreenFlow and because I know how to rip through it really quick using my existing tools, or do I use Descript because then I can edit it like a Word document? And a lot of the questions you just don't want to have to answer, like, how can I stylistically do this the best way possible? Like fades and transitions.
I've gone deep on every one of these tools. Like I've used them all for many months, each of them. I've used ScreenFlow for many years. I've used Descript for a couple of years. Now I'm going deep on DaVinci Resolve. The thing that I notice about this market is that none of them really capture the need of the serious YouTuber.
Yes.
Like I feel like Descript comes the closest, but they still miss it. And like DaVinci Resolve, which is also similar to like Adobe Premiere and Final Cut Pro, these are more pro level, but they're pro. So they're really catering to like the editor of TV shows and film.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then there's like ScreenFlow, which is really originally just for like screencasting kind of stuff, which, yes, I'm doing a lot of screencasting, but I'm also doing a lot of camera work. And yeah, technically you could do that, but they have no script-based editing. For me, script-based editing is huge, right? So Descript is pretty good with that. DaVinci now finally has some script-based editing in there. ScreenFlow does not have any of it. And then you have like super consumer level stuff that's like just magically click a button and it spits out a TikTok video. Like, no, I'm not trying to do that.
Although, did you see you can now upload like 1 hour videos to TikTok? That's a new thing that just came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Our editor, Chris Enns, is experimenting. I told him he could start a TikTok account for the podcast, for the panel. So I think he's going to try to upload some videos there.
If anyone's listening, and Adam, if you are building this is the product that I want you to build. Okay.
Yeah, let's hear
it. I want the AI to like first have a solid script of my video. That's easy to do, right? yes, I want to be able to edit the script, but the main thing that I want is like, I always want to keep my last take. So I'm going to read my script and I'm going to say most of the lines like 5 or 6 times. In 100% of the cases, I want the last one. I want to cut the rest. So, and I've tried to do this like using Claude and using Descript and everything. And like, it is really hard to get the AI to understand like, oh, that's the best, that's the last take. I'm going to cut everything else. And I might say things slightly different in the takes, but I wanted to know like, all right, that's a complete take and that's the last one.
Yeah.
And then just repeat that throughout the rest of the thing. So that literally the goal for me is to get it, is to get the raw footage in there, press a button, AI cuts out all the bad stuff, and I'm left with a good, at least a draft of like the final like A roll of the video. Okay? And then I'll go in and like tweak the transitions if I need to, and the cuts between the camera and screen. But I don't want to spend time cutting out the bad takes or piecing together takes. You know?
What does that look like for you? Like, does it look like the last take is always the right take, and then you want to push a button that says this is the right take, or is it just you want the AI to know this is the last take? That's almost always the best take.
Yeah, because when I'm recording it, I'm just letting it roll. Right now.
Yeah.
You know, so like when I import it into the editor, it should just get the whole video, it gets the whole script.
Yeah.
And then it can just use its AI magic to understand like, okay, this 80% all needs to be cut out. And these are the final takes of each line. Like, because I don't stop the recorder. It's not like I have like 50 video files that I import. It's one long video file, you know?
Yeah. Have you tried this? Corey Griffin is recommending this CapCut desktop editor. Have you tried that one?
I've looked at that. It's like too consumer. Like, cause then it's like, then you can't like edit it like a professional final, like everything else past the script editing I want to do at the professional level, right? Like the cuts, the transitions, the color correction, like all that kind of stuff.
Ryan Hefner's pointing out like for skateboard videos back in the day, what you would do is after a good shot, you would cover your lens twice like this so the editor could see it. And
that's a good idea.
Like, you need something like that in AI, like, oh, good take. Like that's because in skateboarding, you're taking hundreds of takes to, get a trick down.
Anyway, that's a lot of inside baseball. What do you got? What's on your mind, man?
Interesting. Well, one thing I just wanted to show quick is how one thing I've liked about Descript that I think they are getting right is lately I've actually been using the web editor a lot more. My machine here at work is still Intel based machine. And so I don't even know if I can use their app anymore, but the web editor is pretty good. And even just making decisions like this, like, hey, we're going to lay it out like this. Where's a new scene? Do I have a scene here? This might not be a good example because I might not have cut this into scenes, but just having something that you can easily like create a scene, create a transition. That stuff is so helpful. Oh yeah, here, I got lots of scenes here.
Yeah.
Like this, it's not loading right now, but it allows you to transition between like single view, dual view, and you can see I've got tons of edits here down here. Yeah. And
I mean, like, it's like they have all the features. I just found that for me, they were like hard to use.
Yeah. Yeah. It just needs to get faster.
That's
like,
the thing.
Everything needs to be faster.
What Descript I think is really best in class at right now is the automatic cuts between words, right? Like they do a really good job of like, just cut out all the ums, and then they don't just cut them out. They have a perfect transition so that you don't notice them at all.
Oh, I actually haven't tried that yet. I've always been nervous to try that.
Yeah, and you can really fiddle with it. But the other cool thing about DaVinci that I've never seen before is they have some magic that goes on the video edit side, right? So if I'm cutting a couple sentences together, usually you need to like hide it a little bit with cuts. They have some sort of like this thing called like smooth transition where it looks like I just said it in one long perfect take.
Oh, sweet.
But it's like multiple takes and it just blends, and it's crazy how good it is, you know?
Yeah. I've just really like, this is a drop zone for an image, right? And if I go into the layout section, I can easily pick what I want for this scene. I find that stuff really helpful. Just like, I don't want to think about it. You know, I just want to be able to quickly build it. Yeah. And, yeah, I think they've nailed a lot of this kind of like, you know, here's a nice side-by-side view that's kind of stylized, and we're going to transition between it. And here's an easy way to bring in other clips, and it's just drag and drop, you know?
What was that thing you texted me earlier this week?
Yeah, so I got a book recommendation. I've been reading Apple in China. And this, I thought this would be boring because I thought it'd be about logistics, about Apple in China and like they're basically manufacturing and all that stuff. It's been so good. And there was a quote in there that I've been thinking about, which is actually from the authors quote a different book, Becoming Steve Jobs. The quote is, "Next would turn out to be the full unfortunate blooming of Steve Jobs' worst tendencies at Apple."
Yeah, so they're talking about next computer.
Yeah. And just hearing the story, because they kind of go through the story, and when you hear it, you're just like, man, it's so clear that Steve Jobs's impulses, not just at Next, but early on at Apple, were really ruined those companies. Like his impulses, his way of doing things. Like when he left Apple, Apple was not in good shape. That's why the board ousted him. And if all of us were on the board, we would have made the same decision. Like he was like building his own factories and like micromanaging everything. And the original Mac launch was a total disaster. They didn't sell nearly as many as they thought. They priced it completely wrong. And then he goes to Next, full of hubris and ego, and just makes a series of more mistakes, right? And really the only thing that saved him personally was he kind of like accidentally fell into Pixar, and Pixar just Pixar
took off. Yeah.
Well, they were doing other stuff. Like I think they were a software company first, and none of that worked. And then there was just this one little group that was doing storytelling, and that took off. So it's wild for me to think about Steve Jobs, this like, you know, bigger than life figure in the tech industry, and to think, look at his early life and go, wow, he was just, it was one calamity after the other. Like he was just not killing it.
I mean, I remember reading the Steve Jobs biography and just like, obviously like that's when the world found out like sort of like how much of an asshole he was like in like with people. Right?
Yeah.
Internally. And I think that's always sort of like the legacy of people who knew him. But I think that there's also a flip side to that. And the next thing, I was a little bit young at the time, but from what I understand, looking back on the history, I think there was also like a product market fit issue with Next Computer. Like,
yeah, but it all erupted out of his personal tendencies. I think this quote, what's interesting to me about it is that you have a situation where in a bunch of circumstances, Steve Jobs' character and personality, and even things that would later become advantages in these earlier contexts, like something wasn't right. So a lot of the Steve Jobs that ended up winning was present back then when he was losing. And it just made me think about myself. And I think we could all observe people from the outside and go, like, I think people were looking at Steve Jobs and going, dude, like, what are you doing? You're pricing this machine. You know, back then a Next computer was like $5,000 or something, $6,000.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Is like it was really targeting this like super high end professional, and that market I think just didn't really develop yet. You know, like it's there now, and they'll buy the Mac Studios now, but like, I don't know.
Yes. And so the question I had for myself is, what can we as indie makers do? What kind of self-reflection can we have? What kind of looking at ourselves and thinking, you know, these characteristics we have that can be real strengths in certain circumstances can also be real weaknesses in other circumstances.
Yeah,
And
I hear you.
And I was just like trying to think about, what does that look like for me? What are ways of exposing, you know, those things?
I want to get into that question, like with you and with me and with others, but actually, just real quick on the Apple thing, I think another interesting angle on that is to think about Tim Cook, right? Like, I'm a huge Apple nerd, and like in terms of my reading and consumption right now, I'm super into Apple news and like big tech news. I listen to Dithering with John Gruber and Ben Thompson. I read his blog. I read Daring Fireball a lot. I think it's really interesting, especially this year, the stumbles that Apple is going through. I mean, they're just printing money continuously with the iPhone and computers, but they completely missed the show with AI.
Yeah.
And then it's also like,
and the
like
web.
The
really.
Vision Pro was a flop. Like, come on, like that didn't work. And it's really interesting. And then there's a huge backlash from developers who release apps in the App Store, and just the pure greed of Apple, with, you know, the 30%. And then they go to, if you follow the details of this, they get sued in court, and then they kind of pull some shenanigans to be like, okay, it won't be 30%, it'll be 28%. Like, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And then like lately there's been all this news around like now they're promoting the new F1 movie through the Apple Wallet, so all these people are getting these notifications. It's like not really cool to be coming from your wallet app.
Yeah.
And it's just like a lot of like hypocritical kind of marketing stuff and sales stuff and like revenue optimization stuff. Meanwhile, they are asleep at the wheel on product vision and design choices and all. And so you think about Tim Cook, right, is the leader, and people are literally starting to call for him to step down. And it's like, well, I think he's been a fantastic CEO for Apple over the last decade or so, but you do think about his tendency, right? Like, he was always an operations guy and like a numbers guy and like revenue optimization.
Yeah, he shows up a ton in this book. Like, you really get a sense of what was interesting is he was at IBM. So he came over from IBM and brought a bunch of IBM people over. And you'd think like those cultures wouldn't work. And he was the one that really led them. Like, they were not an outsourcing company. And it was really under Tim that they said, no, we need to go to China and work with Foxconn. And like, Foxconn was just building little connectors for them previously. And yeah, so that's such a great example of what Tim's good at in a certain circumstance, in a certain environment, in a certain period of time. You know, that's perfect. And
like, he's great for blowing up the revenue and the profit and the services line from Apple now and all that. But like new product innovation, or, you know, nailing product market fit with cutting edge stuff, like they don't have that leader anymore.
Yeah. I think blind spots is such an interesting question, and also interesting, just like this, when you go to therapy, this comes up a lot, is you'll say, you know, I might say something like, man, like this part of my personality really, where'd you go? Brian's like, oh, you're talking about therapy. I'm out of here.
I'm done with it.
You know, I'll bring up to my therapist list, like, this part of my personality, man, it causes me all sorts of trouble. And I think therapists are really good at saying, yes, that causes you a lot of trouble, but can you also see throughout your life how that part of your personality has really served you, how it's benefited you, how it's benefited other people and where you work and other things. And that's but at the same time, having the ability to point it out when it's happening. So yeah, like how can we expose those blind spots? One thing that has been helpful for me, and I honestly kind of miss this in a way, because when you're a solo developer, you kind of look for all these things to help you figure this stuff out. But one thing I did for years is I did a weekly mastermind call with Paul Jarvis and Jared Drysdale. And I just found that so helpful to, like, we did it for maybe 3 or 4 years straight every week. And to eventually have these people that knew so much about you and had seen you try different things and could say, you know, we know what you're good at. We know what you're not good at. We know when you get into trouble. We know when you go off the rails. Like, that was so helpful. And
yeah, man,
you kind of, once you're got a team, and like, you know, John and I do this together as well, but there was something about being a solo founder, and it was just like in a little group of other solo founders. It can be detrimental sometimes too. I think you've mentioned that, but I found that really helpful.
I found it incredibly valuable for many years. I was in multiple masterminds, very similar thing. If you followed the Bootstrap Web podcast, me and Jordan met through being in a mastermind together, before, like 2 years before the podcast even started.
Yeah.
And I was in a few other really solid groups. Sometimes a year they lasted, sometimes a little bit longer over the years. Right now I'm not in one, but I'm in a few. I have a bunch of contacts that I chat with on a regular basis, and I'm in a few like Slack groups and stuff. And then I've been going to Big Snow Tiny Comp every year to go snowboarding with a group of like 12 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of like a mastermind group that meets like once a year.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I found that piece helpful too, these founder retreats. I think I mentioned that in this one too. Where is that? Oh yeah, this is the year I also went on this Colorado retreat that Sean Blanc organized. And in particular, like I remember we did some hot seat stuff, and again, sometimes those can work and sometimes not. But I remember James Clear was there, and he specifically said to me, like, dude, like, I think at the time I was working on a new course or something, and he's like, this isn't it for you. Like, this, what you're investing all this time and energy into this thing, this isn't going to get you where you want to go. And I remember, like, I came home and I kept working on it, but then a few months later I was like, yeah, like that. Yeah. And then think about this. This is 2017. So I had these big retreat in Colorado. And for the first time, Paul, Jared, and I got together in Victoria. And then, I also went and hung out with Mike Vardy in Victoria. And then basically this year, I started talking to John about building Transistor. Like, I don't even know if I mention it in here. I don't think I do, but it's like that happened right after all this stuff happened. Like, they were able to like expose me to.
I mean, definitely looking back on the earlier years, even more recent years, but like I remember the earliest years of my self-employment career, I was totally alone, right? Like freelance web designer. And then I started to venture out to some local meetups here in Connecticut. Met a few people through that. But then I started going to MicroConf. And then I started to actually meet people. And then I joined this mastermind group with Jordan and a few more MicroConfs. And then me and Brad started Big Snow Tiny Comp. And definitely that's when more interesting things started to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like Restaurant Engine was starting back then. And then, and you know, discovering like Mixergy was a big eye opener for me.
Yeah.
Like, there's other people that have the same skill sets as me building bootstrap businesses. Why do I have to be a web designer? I could actually build a business. And then like meeting people who do that. It was huge for me. I think, and then that continued. You know, I did similar retreats every year. I think in more recent years, in the last year or two, 3 years, I love those guys. I love hanging out with them. I have a ton of fun snowboarding and talking business, and I love digging into other people's businesses. We've been doing the hot seat thing every year, and it's helpful in that like it's like a state of the union type of thing, showing all the numbers and showing the history and how you got here and what's on your mind right now. I think for me, I've struggled with like lately I've gone into a different direction. We've been talking about builder methods. It's like a creator-led thing. Like among the groups that I've been in, I have not really been in a group with other people who take a personal branding or content-led approach to business. Most of the other people that I know in these groups have been really successful with the traditional B2B SaaS model, which I've always been extremely envious of and inspired by. And obviously SaaS is something that I've been trying to do for years. But one of the things that I've learned is that like about myself through a ton of reflection and really hard times over the years is like what works for me is teaching and creating and podcasting and videoing and translating that to influence and then translating that into products and businesses, but for other people, like they can just blow it up with an SEO strategy or an ad strategy or product market fit that just nails it at the right time with a SaaS. And that just sort of, no matter how many times I tried, like that hasn't really worked for me. And so like that's where it's like I want to take everyone's advice in these groups. Because I really respect their opinion and I trust their opinion, but at the same time, every person's opinion, every person's advice is based on their lived experience. And if we have a different lived experience and we're coming from a different set of strengths and weaknesses, it's really hard to reconcile that. And that's why in the last couple of years, I started to lean much more heavily on like trusting my own gut instinct and hearing advice, trying to internalize it, but understanding like this is where I'm different, and I sort of understand the reasons for that.
Yeah. I wonder if do you think that had anything to do with why you and Jordan were also kind of feeling like maybe it's time to mix it up? Because that's what made the show fascinating, is you guys knew each other for so long, but Jordan just has such a different way of building a business, and you're over here and you were trying out this other approach, and sometimes that can be helpful, and sometimes
I definitely would not say that was the reason we stopped the podcast. I love Jordan. I literally just today, an hour ago, I was DMing with him. We're talking about doing like a mid-year check-in on the Bootstrap Web
you gotta
podcast. So we're gonna do that sometime in the next month, I think. And he's just started up a podcast, by the way, talking to some folks. So
I noticed that.
No, I mean, Jordan's great, dude. I listen, I'm a fan of Bootstrap Web too. And I always loved the difference in approach and where we come from and where we're going in our approach to business. I loved how we saw things very differently. Some things the same as some, but and then we also have a lot in common. Like we both literally come from. I mean, he comes from Israel originally, but we grew up in Long Island, New York, together. So we have that like East Coast thing.
I did find what worked. I think when Paul Jarvis and Jared Drysdale and I were doing the Mastermind is our businesses and our approaches to marketing and personal branding were very similar, and so. In that group, it did make it easier to like be like, oh, Paul's trying this. Well, I'm going to try this. And then, oh, Justin's doing this. I'm going to try this. And so we were able to, it really worked for us for a while. And really the big reason that group stopped meeting was Paul was like not interested
Paul sort of quit the internet.
He was kind of quit the internet. And then Paul and I had both started a SaaS company, and Jared was going more towards the consulting angle. And so, I think what makes this question challenging, how can we make sure that our worst impulses, which might come out of really positive attributes that we have, but how can we make sure we're not making these like really damaging mistakes, to our lives and to our businesses? What kind of holds us in line? And the question sometimes is like a mastermind group of people that are kind of doing the same thing as you and are like, know you. I also have a friend, Tim, that I call and message, who's in a completely different business and is not really like me, but he's able to like sometimes call me out on stuff. It seems like
I've had a good this year. My younger brother, he's 2 years younger than me. Been doing some calls pretty regularly, and he and I both go through a lot of challenges in our lives in different ways. He's a business owner. You know what kind of business he runs?
Farmer.
Oh, you knew that.
Oh, is that true?
He's a farmer.
Oh, he's a farmer. Okay, yeah.
He runs a farm in northern Connecticut called Calf and Clover Creamery. They do raw milk. They do yogurt, cheese. He's got a ton of challenges. I mean, you think our shit is hard? like try running milk shifts every day and waking up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
It's super, super difficult what he does. And
So do you find that helpful? Like, do you think that's a good,
Yeah. I mean, he and I have always been close. But it's interesting, because I know nothing about the farming industry or the farming business, but I do try to coach him on like mindset and how to keep a cool head when you're having difficulty with an employee or whatever it might be. And he hears me out on my shit, and even though he's like afraid of computers and AI and all that, but like,
I mean, I think this is one reason, just to kind of maybe wind down on this topic, is one of the reasons I've liked doing this, just podcasting in general, is for myself, I think talking things out loud and having someone else that's listening and kind of responding and asking questions, that has helped me as well, because it's like, once I have to explain it, and then often after these episodes, I'll be like, oh man, like once I had to explain that, it kind of exposed like maybe something I hadn't thought of or an angle I hadn't thought about. And yeah, I find that helpful
one thing
too.
That's interesting about I think one of the reasons that we ended Bootstrapped Web, at least on my side of things, like when you and I started the panel, it wasn't going to take the shape that it is now. It's sort of you and I just riffing on whatever we're working on. But like, I think for me, if I'm honest, like one of the things that started to hinder more than help, I think, was not anything between me and Jordan. It was just me knowing that there are all these people out there listening every single week, and like really just, I loved that people were so loyal to the show, but it's also like every move I make in my business is a point in a story for other people people are tuning into. And there's a lot of times when I'm just thinking about like, all right, if I'm going to make this or that decision in my work, how is this going to play on Bootstrapped Web? And that is like not helpful.
No, when you're starting to think about the storyline, like you're starting to think of your life as an arc.
Not helpful in what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I can.
Of course, this show is it's different, but it's starting to take that direction. But
but it's a different group of people. Sometimes even mixing that up can be helpful. Yeah, cool. Well, I think it's something to think about, and I'm still thinking about it too. Like how am I operating, and how can I be aware of the ways, I could be damaging or hurting more than not.
Maybe this weaves into one of the topics that's been on my mind this week.
Okay.
It's sort of a question for both of us. We were doing those matrices.
Oh yeah.
With the emojis and all that.
Yeah.
And the emoji that is most interesting to me. Remember, we had like the $, we had the clocks, like how much money is this business making? How much time are we investing in it?
Yeah.
How many shovels are we like? That's like I guess like sweat investment into it.
It's like breaking ground.
The battery.
Yes.
And the battery was what's energizing us.
Yes.
Right. So I want to sort of like zoom in on the battery, right? Like,
okay.
What is it about your current business or my current business that gives us energy?
Mm-hmm.
That makes us say like, yeah, this one has the most battery.
Man, I've been really thinking about this today, and because I haven't been sleeping well the past couple nights, and maybe getting like 5.5 hours sleep or something like that. But both the nights I didn't sleep very well, I had just wildly productive days. Like I was just on fire. And both days I was working on this podcast standards project stuff, exploring this new spec for doing audio and video in the same podcast feed and allowing people to switch back and forth, and behind the scenes doing all of this, like talking to people at different platforms and emailing people and trying to like get some leverage for this coordinated push to try to make something happen in the world. And, you know, I get to the office at 8 a.m. and then before I look at the clock and it's 6:30 and I'm in trouble. I'm late for dinner, you know? So that has been interesting to me, because then there's some days where I can't keep my eyes open. Like I'll have some lunch and I'll be like, I got a nap.
Yeah.
So what is that? You know, what causes one day to make you feel like you're low battery? And
you're one of the people that I know who's to me, it just seems like a natural, like extrovert and community led person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I know that you also have a side of like, I don't know what the word is. Like you want to make positive change in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah.
And, you know, so I know that's very important to you on a bunch of different topics, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it's obvious that like those all converge in this podcast standards project.
Well, and that's interesting even to like, I think, ask yourself, there was a video by, who's that guy? Daniel Pink just did a video on, I think, kind of exploring for young people, like how do you explore what you want to do as a career? And he just has a series of questions. And one of the questions is, kind of what fires you up? What would you do if you didn't get paid? What do people consistently reach out to you for, like for advice or for help in? I found that really interesting. What is it for you? Like, what are some of your thoughts around like what gives you energy and battery, and what drains you?
Well, I know that for me, it's always like spending my time creating.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a number of things. Like I really do enjoy we were talking earlier about creating video content. Like I love the whole process from the script to the delivery to the editing. It's fun and creative for me. And then also like building software, designing and building software, spending hours in deep work mode, figuring out an interface, figuring out how I can solve a problem for users in an app. Like that is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And on that note, the other thing that is rattling around my brain in my journal this week is I love designing software. I don't love SaaS.
Okay. Okay. Explain that for me. So I love designing software, but I don't love SaaS.
I think I thought I loved SaaS for many years, and that's been the goal for many years for me, and it's not the goal for me anymore.
Okay. Why not?
I love creating, designing, building software. The SaaS business model is not for me. As believe me, as I know how great it is, and when it works, and how valuable it can be.
Yeah.
And the sustainability of it, it can become profitable. There are ways that it doesn't become profitable. It can lead to life-changing exits and all sorts of stuff. It can lead to life-changing now while you own it. Right? That's all absolutely true.
Yeah.
for me, in my experience with it, it's so hard, and it's always getting harder.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like it's getting harder at the personal level. It's getting harder inside the business level, in the industry level. Like all aspects of it are, they're not just hard, they keep getting harder and harder. Like competition is harder, um, talent is harder, team operations are harder, product work is easier in some ways, but harder. Dealing with churn, like customers, the way customers interact with SaaS products is harder.
Mm-hmm.
All of that gets harder, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you haven't broken out of the desert, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, is this thing sustainable, right? And so all of the hard parts suck the joy out of what I love most about software, which is designing and delivering a great solution to a customer's problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I love that process. I love talking to customers. I love understanding what is the job to be done that they're trying to do and how I can design an elegant, simple solution to that form of software. Like I love that cycle. But when you're working on a SaaS, when you're working on trying to make a SaaS business work, yes, that's an important part of it, getting the product right and solving the problem for a customer. Obviously, that's important. But you're also constantly having to like justify, like, is this going to solve our churn problem this week? Or is this or I shouldn't be building right now. I should be only focused on marketing. Or what is, like, how should we go about marketing? Because the like audience-led creative stuff doesn't really work for SaaS. Like you sort of need to have some unfair advantage of a channel, whether it's SEO or ads or some integration into some channel that can just drive lots of traffic and customers your way. And then the other thing that I've been thinking a lot about is this idea of like customer satisfaction. Right? I don't know if it just gets to be more like when people cancel, like when people churn from my SaaS.
Yeah.
Like churn is a fact of life for every single SaaS.
Yeah.
Even if you have a great low churn rate, like there's still people who are going to churn. And to me, like if one person like cancels today, it's like, they didn't like my product. Like what was wrong? Like what went wrong? Because they thought they would like it. They came in and they even paid for a month. Like, why did they leave? You know?
Yeah.
Like, why does that bother me so much? I know that like it's a numbers game, but like, and so you think about it, it's like I have a lot of happy customers on my SaaS, right? Like even the happiest customers, they still see, like, customers see a SaaS product as it just plugs a hole in their operation. It checks a box. And I'm talking about the happiest customers.
Yeah.
Like the ones who are like who stay subscribed for months or years. It just fills a gap in their business.
Yeah.
That's great.
I like the way that Ryan, I can't remember his name now, but he has this pull framework, and he says it has to be a project on their list. That's like, so yeah, it plugs a hole in their business, or it's a project on their list. Like it's something.
Yes, especially for that initial conversion, like getting them to sign up and convert, right? But the thing is also that, like, even if they're a happy customer, eventually their business is going to change and my product is not relevant for them anymore, so they'll churn. Or the next hot competitor comes along and they end up switching for whatever reason. And it's like, okay, like again, like you can build a great business that way, but then I think about like what I'm building now with builder methods, which is not even really a business yet, and I don't have products on it yet. But like the customer satisfaction of someone who invests in themselves, in their skills, in their they're coming in with an eagerness, with a goal. Like if I can upgrade my skill then I can change my business, or I can change my career, or I can make more value for myself, make myself more valuable to a company or to my company. And that can be life changing. And I think about in 2018, I spent most of that year investing in my skills, becoming a full stack software developer. And it's by far and away, the best return on investment of my career was that.
Yeah.
Right. And it unlocked all these doors for me, and personally, professionally, creatively, financially, all of it. And so the satisfaction, the meaning of creating something and delivering it and selling and delivering a product that I obviously I want to optimize a business that has a strong customer lifetime value financially.
Yeah.
But also just the impact for customers long term is starting to become more important to me, I think.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't come off as lofty, that SaaS is not important, because there's incredible SaaS businesses to be built, but I just think the way that customers interact with their SaaS tools that they buy, is it's a really it's really hard to cross the threshold of is it valuable enough for them to even pay for your tool.
Yeah.
But then even at the highest level of customer satisfaction, it's still just another tool that will come and go for them.
Yeah.
Which makes it really difficult to keep them, because there's so many more SaaS tools coming online all the time.
Yeah. I mean, the challenging part about all of this is, in general, I think we end up getting the most fired up when what we're interested in matches up with what's making money. And so I've tried so many things over my lifetime that I was really wanting to do. I had a snowboard shop, and I was really into snowboarding. I thought I would be really into retail, but there wasn't an alignment there between I swam out for that wave, and that wave just sucked. When I started surfing it, it was no good. But everybody has had that experience of, and Jordan, your friend Jordan, goes skiing. He hates skiing. Every day on the mountain is terrible for him.
Yeah.
And he can't identify with that feeling of, there's some days you get out on the mountain and it does suck. There's some days you get out on the mountain and you're like, this is the best thing in the universe. There's nothing better. This is incredible. This is just, when everything is going well, it's a real difference between when things aren't going well.
Sure.
And so I think
it's worth the trek from the car through the parking lot onto the chairlift.
Yeah.
That all sucks.
And
once you get up there.
I mean, and it's hard, some days you really don't want to drive up to the mountain and get your gear on, and then you end up having a great day. Other days you think it's going to be amazing. It snowed a bunch and you're just can't wait to get out there, and you get out and it sucks for whatever reason. You don't know why, whatever. And I think business can be like that. And it can seem unfair, even I'm sure this has frustrated me too in the past, where I tried building a product and it didn't work. And then 2 years later, somebody built it and it worked. It's what the hell? I had that insight. What was it about? And truth is, it could be a mix of things. It could be the timing was wrong. My execution was wrong. It just didn't align with my skills. Sometimes the world you just miss, it just slips out of your hands, and that's it. Peter Soom had Reform, and, it wasn't really working for him, and he sold it. And now Tally is a new form builder that's taking off. And you can compare those and go, well, that doesn't seem fair. Peter's a super talented, awesome dude. And
they were happening at the same time.
And they're working hard. And it's just why does one work and not one not?
I think you were saying this maybe off air before we started today, but how there are some SaaS products that really are sort of winner take all.
Yeah.
Or a few take all.
Yeah. Like Riverside. And I mean,
Riverside is one of them, but like, I, that there's always room for like competition, but like to a certain extent in SaaS, there is some level, like competition is real.
mm-hmm.
And it's like, I deal with it every single day with Clarity Flow. Like when a person comes into Clarity Flow, they are definitely comparing us against other competitors,
Mm-hmm.
or they're coming from another competitor, or they might go to another competitor when they churn.
Yeah.
That's always a real thing, you know?
Yeah.
In SaaS specifically.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like there are, like there are just things that are just so difficult to overcome to make a SaaS business work.
Mm-hmm.
And those things are increasingly challenging, which again, like Peter built a beautiful product with Reform.
I'm still a customer. I still use it.
Yeah. And like, and it's like, that's not good enough. You know, like you still need to, obviously figure out product market fit and distribution channels and all that.
I mean, I think, yes, there's still part of the interesting thing for me is, and again, this is no slight against Peter, because this happened to me many times before as well. But there is,
my SaaS life,
but there is an interesting question about how come it didn't work for Peter, but it did work for Tally. And there are reasons. Part of it could be marketing. It could be didn't start with the right initial group, didn't, you know, there's all sorts of questions that I think are worth reflecting on in our attempts to do things. I think also the other thing that's just true is, like, for you right now, you're really fired up about this new idea and builder methods and stuff, and it's really feeling like it's jiving, and it's like, yeah, this is working. There's alignment between what I'm interested in and what the market wants. And you definitely have to go after those moments. Like, that is the time to go after an idea. And so I think that's what people should be doing. I think they should be going, when an opportunity presents itself, they should go after that idea. They should go and, you know, pursue it. But I do think there's also, you know, I was looking at this old blog post I wrote back in, I don't know, 2000 something. And it was after I had a series of attempts at SaaS that weren't working. And
what year was that?
So here, let's go scroll to the bottom. Hold on. So I wrote this in 2016.
Okay.
So 2016, and I'm like, look, 2004 to present, software as a service, the pendulum swung from desktop applications over here. But now I think, you know, we've had the SaaS gold rush. I think we're at peak SaaS. You know, I think that, you know, it's gotten easier to make CRUD apps. And I predicted, you know, the return to desktop apps, self-hosted cloud applications, like everybody would be just one-click installing open source projects from onto Heroku and DigitalOcean, and pay once web apps, all-in-one apps, like more bundling.
You were talking about once before once.
Yeah, I was micro SaaS. You know, I had all these things, like, and then 2 years later, we're building Transistor, and it just worked. And so I changed my mind because it was working, you know?
Yeah.
And so yeah. I think
I mean, you made it out of the desert, and that's when SaaS is like a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the lesson to take from what you're saying is not necessarily SaaS or not SaaS or whatever. I think the truth is that you've just got to keep pursuing things when it seems like there's an alignment between your interest, your passion, your skills, your advantages, and what the market wants, in whatever form that should take. And, you know, like, I'm not doing courses anymore, but Aaron Francis is killing it with courses. And so I could have given him advice to say, dude, like, don't go into courses. Like, it's tough. It's not. And a lot of those things might be true.
Yeah. The way that I'm navigating this whole, like, I love software, but I hate SaaS thing is that I think a lot of people who are in SaaS who, would probably look at that and say like, okay, well, you're not cut out to be a founder of a SaaS, but you should go work for a SaaS, or you should do consulting and build and be the designer and builder for other clients or for an employer. And I've looked at that, and I've done consulting to pay the bills a bit, but that's not the answer for me. Like, I'm still an entrepreneur. I came close to taking a position and decided like I can't hang it up. I've got to remain a business owner.
Yeah.
So that's not the solution for me. For me, it's with builder methods. What I'm so fired up about this business is that it is all about software, but I don't have to use the SaaS business model. So obviously, I'm teaching how to build software. I'm teaching how to build with AI. I'm gonna be building and teaching and like building a lot of stuff for the material of teaching, right? So that's exciting. But I'm also building actual software tools for myself to use. I talked about this newsletter builder idea that I'm building out.
Yeah.
Help like assemble my newsletter for this business. Like that's a piece of software that I'm going to be building. I've got other kind of scratch my own itch ideas for software tools that I'll be building and showing on YouTube and using in my own operation. Like that, it's a big part of making this business work is automating and streamlining using AI and using software. So that's exciting for me, but that doesn't have to be the way that I don't have to find a way to find hundreds of customers to pay $49 or $99 a month in a matter of months in order for this business to become viable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this is definitely, I think, the best approach for you right now. I've said that too. I think the pursuing this idea at this moment is right in your wheelhouse. It's like you've already been in motion. You've been showing up on this beach, checking out the waves. You've been swimming some of these waves. And now it's clear there's this massive wave. Like AI is going to totally transform the way that developers work. And so this is the moment.
I'll tell you one sort of open question that I'm maybe starting to get a little bit nervous about, but like, I think it's good that right now I'm really just focused on like the distribution channel for this business first, the YouTube channel and growing the email list. And I'm getting a lot of responses, a lot of survey responses. So people are sort of showing interest in what you're showing there, like courses. But I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around like what is actually the paid value that can turn into a product, because like there's going to be a lot of free. I'm already doing a lot of free teaching on YouTube, and I'm really just trying to put my best possible voice and ideas forward totally for free on YouTube.
Yeah,
that's sort of like priority number one. And then the next thing, like right now, I'm actively building a thing called Agent OS, which I think is an insanely valuable tool in building with AI. It's like a set of cursor rules and Claude rules to standardize and operationalize your agents, right? So, but I'm gonna be releasing it for free as like an open source thing for anyone to use. I think it's good enough to be a paid product, but I just think that like the nature of what this is sort of demands that it should be free. There's other things like it developing, people talking about their cursor rules and stuff that are free. So like this wants to be free, so I'm going to be putting it out for free, and I think it can hopefully bring a lot more people into my audience and lead flow and all that. But then the question becomes like, okay, so if I do a course that covers like Claude Code, right? Obviously anyone can go on to Claude Code and learn it themselves. Anyone can watch my videos or many other videos out there that to figure out how to use Claude Code. What is the actual added value of paying a couple $100 for a course, right? And maybe it's like, okay, you're learning from my style of teaching it, and we're doing projects together, and maybe you're in a group with other people who are building, so there's some value in that. But I'm still, that's an open question of like, how is this thing going to be monetized?
Yeah. I mean, I think like I said, I have really been enjoying this guy's articles. His thing is called The Path to Product Market Fit, I think, on Substack, howtogrow.substack.com. And he had this pull model, which is there's a project on their to-do list. I think is such a good way of framing all this, which is like, I can tell you one project on our to-do list now. Even if you just take one part of our business, which is building podcast website themes. So we do that internally. And Josh is primarily the one that does that, but John will sometimes do it as well. But you can also imagine a future where the whole team equipped with AI could also contribute in some way. And so now we're like trying to figure out how one project on our to-do list that we just talked about today is how can we, and some people are using Claude Code and some people are just copying and pasting into ChatGPT and some people have tried Cursor, and we're all over the map in terms of our usage of this thing. And so there's a number of projects there. First, how can we all get on the same page on this? Like, how do we get a whole team aligned around an approach and best practices? And so we're not just working in our individual silos. Like, it goes from cave experimentation, like we're all experimenting in our cave, to actually like, no, this is something the whole team is doing. So that's a project that's on our list right now. And it's unavoidable because it's like, the more that all of us are kind of doing our own thing, the more it kind of like, we're not really taking advantage of AI. Like, for us to truly take advantage of it, it feels like we need a unified approach. And we're looking into options. We're trying to figure out how to do, but it's piecemeal. Like, I find a video and I post it in Slack, and someone else finds a workaround and they post in Slack, but nothing is bringing this together for us.
I do think that there's going to be value in coaching. I've done a coaching engagement with a SaaS team already. And I've had some inquiries from others, and like one idea is, so like once I have this Agent OS thing out, I'm hoping to get it out by next week, or the week after. Like, that's going to be the basis of everything that I sort of do, whether it's coaching or courses. It's all going to sort of point back to like, implement Agent OS, because this is like the whole strategic way to do this. But like, and I could think through some like value coaching options, right? Especially for teams. Like, okay, you get like X number of calls with your team, or maybe I put together a private workshop just for your developers, just for your company, and charge a lot of money for that. But like, part of me is like, I don't really want to do coaching. I don't, like, I am trying to make this more of a passive, not like passive is the wrong word, but I'm not trying to book appointments on my calendar.
Yeah.
I know that there are great coaching companies that can be built where, especially if it's like built around a methodology like an Agent OS, where like I can train other coaches and we can deploy coaching offers with a team of coaches. Like, that's a direction that could take form eventually. But like, I don't know. Like, it's just a huge open question. Where the revenue streams are going to be.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's also sponsorships. For the channel, for the courses. So
I don't know. I mean, I think that's the challenging part about the exploration phase is you're really trying to figure out, like, there's something there. Like, you can see that there's demand for something, like people are struggling with it. But then on your side, you're like, does this align with what I want to do? Does this align with my passion? And I'm not like closed off to like, if it's like I'm not gonna, I'll say like nothing is off the table. Yeah.
Right? Like even software tools to sell. Like, I'm sure I will sell software tools again at some point. But like, all I know at this point is like, it's still just good to keep putting videos out, and get the newsletter going, and just keep growing the audience. Because the more that I can grow the audience, especially the right audience, that professional developer, the more of them I can get into my orbit, the easier everything else is going to be. Whether it's figuring out what the products are, whether it's getting traction with those products. It's like, I have to keep this audience engine going, and like, that's the big difference with this compared to other businesses. Like, like I spent years just trying to figure out how to get more than 10 customers a month.
Yeah.
And hopefully this one, it's weird to like build a business and not really know what the products are going to be yet. But I sort of already know who the customer is, and I just need to go, and I already know how I'm going to find and expose to that customer.
Yeah, so and there might be different ways to thread that needle. Like, I mean, this is such a great this idea of like aligning, like, here's what I'm interested in on this side, and here's the customers and all the money on this side. It's like, yeah, you might have to throw a few balls that are gutter balls before you figure out like something that's actually going to hit this market that both gives you what you want and gives the market what they want. And there is even
it's also interesting to think about Adam Wathan with all the right, like he's someone who's built an incredible audience, and I like, he might not say this, but I think he has an incredible business. But he will say that, like, everything that his business offers is basically free, and they've had a hard time figuring out how to really monetize that sustainably, with a growth curve.
Yeah. Did you see what he launched? He launched sponsorships.
I did see that, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking about as you're trying to create alignment between these things, because I'm the same way. It's like, I've been like, I don't really want to do consulting the rest of my life. And so, sometimes it's easy to just like throw that off the table. But there's examples like Profit First came to mind. Oh, there you go. So he wrote the book, and then he created the Profit First, methodology. But
did you listen to him on Jay Klaus's podcast?
Oh yeah, maybe I did. Because then
he just did a replay of his interview with him. I
think. Yes,
it's probably from a few years ago. He replayed it this week. I loved that interview.
Yeah,
it was so interesting.
It's so good. And I think what was interesting is he had all this demand for coaching and consulting, and like, how can people actually, businesses wanted people to help them put this into practice, which I think is similar to you. And he just franchised it. He said, I don't want to do it. And he's like, you can become a Profit First professional. And
I didn't realize that was his model until I heard this podcast. It's really interesting. So he's the author of Profit First, but also like 8 or 9 other books.
Yeah.
And he partners with other vendors to each be like the exclusive, like, partner to deliver the Profit First, done for you service.
Yeah.
And there's like a revenue share agreement there, and like all this different stuff. And it's really interesting.
Yeah. So he's got this whole model of other people, and he's kind of empowering other people to, earn revenue on their own. And, for some people, this business is perfectly within their like sweet spot. Like, they're like looking for something like this, and they're just like, help me. This opportunity for them is exactly what they want. So yeah, I think that's interesting to think about that model there. Rob Fitzpatrick is another one that's kind of done something similar, I think, with his the mom test, but then figuring out other models for delivering it. So I think this is definitely the and sometimes pursuing a wave is like this, which is, you're like, I know there's something here, I'm out here, but I have not figured out this, I mean, I guess that's product founder fit, product market fit, product audience fit.
And, I also think about it like, what is just the freedom line, right? Like, what is and that's like not very high, right? Like, just how can I make this business earn enough on a sustainable level every single month to cover my needs, so that I could literally cut out everything else. Like, no more other consulting, whatever will happen with Clarity Flow, all that doesn't matter. I can just, like, if I can get just the baseline revenue of Builder Methods up to a certain level, where it's like, it's sort of like paying my income and just a little bit more, and it's sustainable, repeatable every single month. So whether that's like, course sales will always sell like 50 copies a month, because that's how that's the level of audience that I have, and that's the conversion rate. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good start. And like, maybe that won't be the flagship product down the road, or maybe I'll go in totally different directions. But once I get to that line where it's like, okay, now I have breathing room, this is profitable and sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's start cooking.
Yeah.
Now let's figure out what is the big play. Like, for right now, it's just like, get the audience and get the, like, just tread water and get to that point where it's like, I know for a fact that over the next 6 months I'm going to get this much revenue.
Yeah.
Then I can be strategic.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like, especially with that kind of business, that's often how it works, is that you generate a bunch of excitement and then audience, and, you know,
I don't, like, with courses, I don't think it has to be. I know that traditionally it's like, oh, okay, like a big launch and then it drops
mm-hmm.
off. But I think that's when the courses are way too personal brand
Mm-hmm.
driven, where it's like people just love this person and it's like this launch event.
Yeah.
But I think if your training business is focused on a topic or a skill that people are continuously wanting to come and learn, like
mm-hmm.
building with AI, right? And if you have lead magnets and traffic sources like a YouTube channel that will just always attract people who are like, this is a way, that's what a wave looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a wave of demand. Like, people are always coming into this wave because more and more people want to use tools like Claude Code or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then hopefully when they do, they're going to find my videos and that will take them into my course.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it doesn't have to be the traditional, whatever, like the Nathan Barry thing, where it's like, if you follow his story, you can be excited about his Black Friday sale and then it drops off.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's had much more success than that, but like, yeah, I like, that's what I'm trying to build here. Like, of course it's my face on the YouTube channel, but like, it's not about me. It's about zeroing in on the topic that people really want.
Yeah. You know, I think the thing that did actually really help me with marketing for developers is it was a checklist on people's lists. And so I think that is, if I haven't redone this marketing page forever. But you know, if I had to rebuild this, I think I would add something like this, which is like a checklist where I show, I know that this is a check mark on your list. Oh, I can make this a little bigger. So it's like prototype, build the app, find a domain. I could add more. But the advantage of this particular course was it was like, it was a project on their to-do list. And I think figuring out the positioning for whatever you're going to do, like figure out what is the checklist that people have that they're just like, okay, got this. Yep. Got this. Oh, wait, this is the one that I need to like solve right now. And it made selling marketing for developers easier because the people signing up were already, either they were aspirational, which is like, one day I'm going to build an app and you know, whatever. But then there was a lot of people who had built something and they're like, now I got to figure out how to promote this. I got to figure out how to market it. And and
I could see that being so valuable. I remember when you were doing that, like really promoting
mm-hmm.
it. And like, I could see how that's so valuable because it can lead to a customer being so successful with it because it's like they're doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're going from doing nothing to doing something.
Yeah.
So it's like if you do any marketing, it's going to be a huge win.
Yes.
You know, and like, so that's where it makes it like, you know, and like that was a challenge that I had with audience ops, right? Like we had a lot of clients. Some of them were clients for many months. Some of them were not. It's like, we can deliver the best possible content. We can be the most reliable partner for them. But like, if content marketing doesn't work for their particular business,
yeah,
they're gonna churn.
Yeah.
You know? And like that like gets me back to that like customer satisfaction metric. I don't know why that. I mean, I think it really does matter. It should matter. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Like it always sort of like got me down thinking that like, all right, I'm just selling a service I'm just selling a thing for somebody to like park their marketing budget for a while until that marketing budget goes somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, that's always going to be part of any product. But satisfaction can be, consumption and satisfaction can mean different things for different people. Like there's a lot of people who bought marketing for developers and it was enough for them to have just bought it and watched a few videos and then it just sat on their shelf. But they're like, if I ever need it, I've got it. It's doing the job I'm hiring it to do. And you know, we have people sign up for Transistor and they don't use it for 6 months. And we like message them like, hey, like, what's going on? And they're like, oh yeah, we're just getting it ready. Like, we just want to have it ready when we're ready to use it. It's like, okay. So for them, that's, you know, what they want. But of course, ultimately you want to be making a difference in people's lives. You know, that's the ultimate goal. And a good product, I think, delivers on that promise somehow, right? It's like,
I think that's important, but also making enough money.
Yeah. That's what makes this all just so hard. It's tough. I just to close this off, and I think we'll probably wind this down. But I do one variable that I don't want to ignore that you're bringing up is you said, you know, you talked about all these structural issues with SaaS, and then I pushed back on it saying, well, you know, people have complained about those structural issues forever. I do think that on one hand, I don't want that to dissuade people.
I should have made that more clear throughout, and I'm going to do the same disclaimer on every episode. I'm talking about me.
Yeah.
Like everyone else should do SaaS because it's a fantastic business. But like that's what I learned about for mine.
Yeah, and I think the point I wanted to pick up on here though is there are businesses and markets and categories that are just structurally difficult. And so that should be part of your calculus is, like, for example, would I recommend that anybody go into Main Street retail in a small town? No, because it's an incredibly difficult business. You have to, it's very sophisticated for the potential reward. So in terms of a bet.
Yeah, it's like figuring out that trade-off.
Yeah.
Is it worth, like,
is it worth the bet? Is it worth, I think anytime in life, we are making bets all the time. We're saying, I'm making this investment of time, energy, and money. And we should be asking ourselves the question, is this, like, once we dip our toe in the water, is this a good use of our time, energy, and money?
A good use of our time is the key phrase there, because especially as you get older, but even when you're not, like a whole 1 year is a long time, and it's significant.
Yeah.
And that's a whole year of choosing to do one thing and not choosing to do something else.
Yeah.
And 1 year is typically not even enough to make a SaaS business work, right? So, and then again, like, I hate to be the guy all the time that's trying to persuade or dissuade our whole audience to not do SaaS, but I guess I am going to be that guy. It's like, again, I'm just talking about myself here, but the conclusion I came to is, like, even if you land on a pretty good idea for a SaaS business, and even if you execute as best as you possibly can,
Mm-hmm.
the unknowns is, like, A, how long is it going to take to become viable? But B, how much harder is this product in this market going to become in 12, 18, 24 months?
Yeah.
Because it's probably going to get harder, and you don't even know the ways that it's going to get harder.
Yeah.
But it's going to keep getting harder.
Yeah.
No matter what. Even if you are semi-successful, it's going to keep getting harder. Like, it's, and so then it's like, how many years am I going to throw at this one idea?
Yeah. That's business. That's
at the expense of
that.
You could say that about anything you choose to do, of course.
Yeah.
But like that's also sort of part of my calculus because I over the last couple of years, I looked at new SaaS ideas that I might do as a business, and all of them, that's ultimately what I landed on. Was like, I really like that idea. I think I can get some customers on that, but I don't know if I can do years for that idea. Whereas this one, we're talking about, it's like, I don't know what the product is, But I could push on this YouTube channel for a year or more and figure out where to go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Like things, uh, like I feel like there are multiple ways that this could be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm going to learn what those ways are and what the challenges are. But like, if you commit to one SaaS idea, like, yeah, you could pivot a little bit, but like that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
I sort of like this idea of like a seed, and then it balloons, and you don't know really where it's going to end up. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I can navigate it in a healthier, like more, like in.
Yeah. No, I think this is a great topic. I think it's like, I mean, I think of our friend Marie Poulin as well. Like she was pursuing SaaS for a long time, and then just being in motion, all of a sudden had a bunch of people on YouTube following her, and then, so
Yep.
Yeah, this is great. We're going to end it there. Thanks for listening and watching, everybody. Thanks to everyone in live chat. We've got Jim Hill. We got Lewis Nichols. We got Ron.
Lewis is
yeah,
great. I gotta like start to like scroll back up and see everyone who's actually hanging out.
Yeah, he's saying maybe he should kickstart another mastermind for.
I was in a mastermind with.
Yeah, Lewis. I think that's what he meant. Yeah, we got Ron, we got Jim Hill. So many folks stopped by today. Ryan Hefner again, Thomas. So great to see everybody. Thanks for watching live, and we'll see you again next week.
Later, folks.